this is John Kohler with DiscountJuicers.com. Today I have a very special treat for you. I'm going to use the juicer in a non-juicing way. So I actually recently had a request. One of my customers said, hey John, I know you've done all those great juicing videos, but you haven't really done any videos showing the other features of the Omega 8000 series juicers. So today we're going to do just that. We're going to show you what happens when you put things in like flax seeds, wheat berries, sesame seeds, Brazil nuts, almonds, pecans, roasted peanuts, roasted and salted. We're going to make our own fresh peanut butter. That's going to be so good. And coffee beans. We're going to grind our own coffee beans. Make our own coffee, ground coffee. The other treat I have is actually we're going to put some dried dates in there. That's going to be a really good candy-like treat when we're done. And the final thing I'm going to do is make the famous banana ice cream. Now this banana ice cream is not really ice cream, but a lot of people in the raw foods community call it banana ice cream because it's 100% banana sorbet. But if you don't eat dairy, then you don't eat any kind of cream, so it takes the place of that. And it is oh so good. Tastes so good. Tastes just like ice cream. And you could just eat all 100% bananas. And this is one great way to eat more, fruits in your diet instead of eating the ice cream, which may be, more rich in calories. The fresh bananas are a lot better for you, in my opinion, than the ice creams, especially when they're added all kinds of additives in. So let's go ahead and first talk about what we're using today. We're using the Omega 8006 juicer, and you may see these other models that I have here next to me. The 8006 model is basically the same juicer as the Omega 8004, except for the color. So the color on the 8004 is white, and everything else is identical. The auger is the same, identical. It's the 8 times harder auger than the 8003 and 5. It also has a 15-year warranty. So both these two machines here have a 15-year warranty, the longest warranty in the juicing industry. This machine over here, the 8005 juicer, which is also the same as the 8003. The 8003 is in white. The 8005 comes in the chrome color. This has a 10-year warranty and has the standard auger. So I would recommend to everybody that they buy the 8004, the 8006 model because the warranty is 5 years longer. And it's not that much more expensive to get this model, but for the extra 5-year warranty, if there's a problem in that extra 5 years, you know what? The extra money you're paying to upgrade to this model pays for itself. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to turn the machine on. Now this juicer runs at a low 80 RPM, and so it's really quiet. The other thing I want to talk about first though, before I get started, is the different screens. So you can see here the different screens. This is actually called the blank screen, or the blank plate, because actually it's blank. There's actually no juicing holes or a screen in there for the juice to come out. And when you put produce or items through the juicer with this screen, it basically just crushes it all up, or what's called homogenizes it. And this is the standard juicing screen. This is the 2-stage juicing screen. Here's juice is originally the produce is crushed and the juice comes out here for the first pressing, and then second stage is over here. And so that's the juicing screen. So today we're using the solid or blank plate to do all this that you'll see. So the first thing is we're going to put in some flax seeds. And so you may have read some things, it's really good to eat flax seeds. Flax seeds are really high in omega-3 fatty acids. The problem with eating whole flax seeds is that if you don't chew them really well, you're probably going to see them come out whole on the other end, in which case they're not going to do anything for you. So we minimally need to crack them, to get some nutrition and chew them really well, or even blend them into a powder, make them into a powder. Now a coffee grinder is usually what you do to blend up flax seeds, or a high power blender, but let's see what the Omega 8006 is going to do for us today. Literally just pour the flax seeds in, and it comes out of the machine, and you can see it's just grinding it all up. So instead of the whole flax seeds here, we now have ground up flax seeds, so I'd call that not a totally fine grind, but they're definitely more bioavailable for us to eat now, and they're going to digest better. And once you do grind the flax seeds or crack them open like this, you're going to want to eat them, within a couple days, because once you do break open the cell walls of the flax seeds, it starts to oxidize, and there's omega-3 fatty acids that will start to oxidize. So this will go rancid fairly quickly, so only make as much as you're going to use at that time. So the next thing we're going to do, let's go ahead and pour this back in there. The next thing we're going to put through is wheat berries. And wheat berries are basically just whole wheat kernels, and this is how they make flour. They literally take this and pulverize it into flour. Let's check out what the Omega 8006 is going to do to the wheat berries. So we want to only put a little bit in at a time and let the machine work. You don't want to overload the machine. So as you can see, we're putting the wheat berries in, and look at what we're getting out. We're basically getting some flour, and basically I would call this cracked wheat. It's definitely cracked, probably good enough to cook. If you want to maybe cook it up, you could probably use whole oat groats and make kind of like cracked oats and cook that up into a cereal. But I wouldn't necessarily call this a flour, and it's probably not too good, for baking a bread. I guess you could try it. There'd be a lot of pieces in there, and I'm not a chef or bake anything, so I don't really know. But as you can see, it's doing the wheat berries just fine, making the flour, the cracked wheat with flour. I guess if you want to sift this out, you can now sift out the flour and have some of the flour and some of the whole wheat berries. So we're going to go ahead and pour this back in there. You can kind of see what that looks like. So the next thing we're going to do is one of my favorite things to eat. This is sesame seeds. Sesame seeds are very high in calcium. They're very good for us. A lot of people may eat raw tahini or tahini, and tahini is just basically ground up sesame seed paste. And with the Omega 8006 juicer, you can do just that. You literally just put some sesame seeds in there. Once again, you don't want to overload the machine. As you can see, it feeds in, really quiet machine, runs at a slow 80 RPMs. And as you can see, it's basically just processing the sesame seeds into this powder. And some of the oil content's coming out, so it's sticking together a little bit, but pretty much it's just sticking together. And this is definitely good to use. I would use this in a recipe. So say you want to make a salad dressing, you can maybe add some fresh juiced lemon with tahini or sesame seed paste with a little bit of garlic. It's going to make a great salad dressing. So we're going to go ahead and put that in there. So it didn't quite make a nut butter, but keep waiting. We got some more nuts here coming. So next we're going to use Brazil nuts. Now Brazil nuts have a higher fat content. So when you're using the Omega 8006 to make nut butters, the problem is a lot of nuts don't have a high fat content, so it's basically going to turn into a nut flour. The Omega 8006 juicer is so powerful, it's going to literally turn into a flour, and the oil content isn't there. If the oil content was there, it'll get those nuts and the flour to stick together and become that butter consistency that we want. So let's go ahead and feed in some of these Brazil nuts. And as you can see on the first crushing, it maybe didn't stick together too well, but now that we're feeding more and more in, and the machine will just kind of, take it as it needs to. Let's go ahead and process all our Brazil nuts. Brazil nuts are very high in selenium, so they're very good for you. And sometimes you'll need to use the pusher to, push the nuts in there if they get stuck. So you can see now we have basically Brazil nut flour, and it's stuck together a little bit. I can take some of my hand, and crush it together, and it's pretty stuck together. If you wanted a more solid consistency, then you would add some maybe Brazil nut oil would be the best, or you could even use some olive oil or coconut oil. If you add a little bit of oil to this, then you'll get that butter consistency that you're looking for. A lot of health food stores, you go to buy the natural peanut butters and almond butters, and you'll see that oil float to the top. That's because there's a high percentage of oil in those nut butters that you're buying. So if you make them yourself, you're not going to have that extra oil in it. So the next thing we're going to do is almonds. So you've seen almond butter in the stores. Now with raw almonds through the Omega 8006 juice, you're going to see what happens. And we're going to get an almond flour, pretty much. Oh, and you can't feed them too fast because this is what's going to happen. It does have a built-in overload, so basically the motor will stop. You're going to reach back here, hit the reverse switch, go reverse, and then go forward. And you might have to play with it a little bit, go reverse and forward a little bit. Now these almonds are really hard. These are California almonds. And it worked right through it, and now we're just going to be a little more careful. We're going to feed them real slowly. So it's real important not to overload your juicer when you're feeding them the almonds. They're definitely a hard nut. Now these almonds don't have a high oil content, not as high as Brazil nuts. So we're definitely getting more of an almond flour in this. So this is more like a flour, really fine texture, and I can take it and try to squeeze it together, and it pretty much kind of just falls apart. So it's not quite the butter that we're looking for yet, but if you added, once again, some almond oil to it, you would have an almond butter. So this is John Cola with DiscountJuicers.com, and be sure to visit DiscountJuicers.com/YouTube for special promotional offers for our YouTube visitors.